5/22/2013, day 213. Despite what it might seem like, these stories have a thematic arc. Things are figured out and stuff does happen. This arc does not follow a linear time pattern in the first book and does not maintain consistent characters in the two books, except for Gerald and his brothers, particularly his older brother. The obvious action will not contain the arc. It will reflect it, but it will not be it. The arc will be in the subtext at the first level of intentionality. One of the things I figured out yesterday, the thing that bugged me, that wasn't quite right yet, I knew I had to edit into existence, was a point in the arc, the point of perspective paused on or arrived at in the continuum at the end of the second book. In the opening of the first book, Gerald is trying to conceptualize the world at once, to grasp aggressively the content of the universe. It will read on to most people, and this will be the turning away point for many readers, as they won't find the flattening of the characters becoming equal to short-term events, imagined influencing language, a projection into understanding literature that is spoken in the vulgar voice of a 13-year-old who is in the process of being spit out to the world, being born. He is assembling what is in front of him into coherence, and he does this mostly by himself, isolated, no adult in charge. There is no guide. He does loosely attach to a series of guides, but is free to leave them as he sees necessary. But the path he has started down is the path he must follow, as it's the only one he can take, as it has defined him and he it. They are the same thing. He is gathering things, collecting things, experiences, insight, information to use to determine order. Each of these is a thing and is formed into a shape that can be saved, stacked, categorized, arranged, and rearranged as he works on this puzzle. The overarching theme in the first half of the book is reality as stated, as forced into coherence versus the practice of that morality, the creation of the morality in reality. Religion is unreliable as it's too flexible and is only spoken of in a codified way, alluding to mysteries to be revealed. He isn't buying into that. He sees it as chants in a dead dialect, mantras repeated by people who never got an understanding for this and did not learn from anyone who had an understanding of it, nor did the parents and grandparents, and on back in time. He comes to the religions as an outsider and asks simple questions of the learned that they should be able to answer. Sort of a question one would ask of a car mechanic about an auto repair, simple things about how to gap a spark plug or what role does gasoline play in an internal combustion engine. The things to which there are answers, one who is trained to know should have. But he never gets a clean, clear answer. Answers he gets from people suggest a mystic, deep spiritual truth is being broached, and answers are forthcoming to the initiated, the anointed. When he poses the questions to the actions of the people he meets, uses the practice of their religion in their lives as the place to reflect this question off of, he finds neither resilience nor uniformity in the return. If the question bounced back full with the answer, then it would be a truth. I have to state these setups outside of the hopeful or floored or conceptual sort of way people speak in when they talk of these things, the dead language of the mystic religions, the hopeful adjectives of full yet inexact meanings, and stating the case in vulgar terms to remove the common social pretense. Children being repeatedly raped while in a town that pretends to ignore it, in fact joins in the rape and humiliation of the children, plays to a better effect in the argument than a polite discussion of what forgiveness really is and the exact nature of the blood of Jesus and what it can or cannot scrub clean. He must extract from this the primary truth, as he knows each thing has a size, weight, and measure, which is its truth. I set these up, looping them through time and through a series of stories that never come to a good end. I kill the innocent, save the worst among all, and knock Gerald down into a depression, then kick him hard a few times. He knows he has to own all the awful stuff and study it calmly, refine it to the core of truth, as the awful stuff is awful, profound, and confusing. They dare not go there place that has all the answers. At the end of the first book, I rather clearly lay this out in several short paragraphs, like sides turned on a pencil, which reveal a different flat edge, a different statement of theme. The book ends, I bind my alternate past and alternate futures in allegory, and allegory becomes my ancestors. I cannot speak of myself unless I acknowledge them. I bring them to the beast, matching legend to terror, fable to myth. Forever is a big place, and we all go there to be forgotten. I'm sorry. I'm 13 years old, walking down the street smoking a cigarette. It's cold outside. Fuck you. He expresses the truth as he knows it now at age 20. What he is facing has to do, the pointlessness of it, and apologizes to people for revealing this is the truth for everyone. He dives back into the process, goes back to the beginning alone, throws everyone aside as he has to. There is no other way to do it. It's a journey people make alone. This carries over into the start of the second book with a perspective 10 years later on, but he revisits and restates those themes in the preface and first chapter, then links the two together in a more narrative form up to the death chapter. The conclusion to the first, the point on the rising arc, is an expectation of intimacy in a social community sense as the kindest expression. This evolves. I can't bring it to its highest point in the second book. I'm thinking I can in the third, but I want to do it with completely different characters, a completely different setup, continuing the same arc. He refines the ideas, the concepts, makes it more and more simple, but he never gets there. In the end, the reader should know a little more than Gerald has yet to conclude. What he knows is known at the author as author/narrator over the author/character level. He is a guy who makes himself a narrator and creates a character to be. I am above that myself as the author, created, and a super author at the highest level. That highest one is where all the fun stuff happens. So, I create myself as a character, which you're seeing here as author. I create a character to pose as author, which is Gerald. Gerald creates himself as the author narrator, forms himself in that voice, and he tells the story of himself as a character. So you have super author, the character is author, the character author is narrator, and the character. So you have 5 levels you have to deal with. In the first chapter, I deal with all 5 of those, introduce them, and they have a tendency to argue with each other over the first few chapters, and they come and go, which is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to put them all in there at once, and it's not going to read at some convoluted intellectual level with funny sentences. It's going to read, that end in odd ways. It's going to appear to jump back and forth, and it jumps back and forth in time, it jumps back and forth in awareness. What I wanted to do was abstract it, and you don't abstract writing by abstracting imagery. You abstract a painting by abstracting imagery because painting is visual. You distort the line to change the painting and to abstract it. You distort the block of color or whatever you're using to form to abstract the painting. The mistake is thinking that abstracting writing, meaning giving it a different twist so you can see other sides of it, which doesn't mean distorting it, it means making it clearer, is to abstract the concept of time in the writing. Everything we have, our grammar of philosophy, the order of things, is based upon where things are. The basis of any speech, of any communication, is location. A dog has a language. My border collie, God rest his soul, had a language. His language was order. He knew where things were. He knew how they got there. He knew where he placed them. He knew how to get them. He knew how to bring somebody to where they should be. And he knew how to collect certain things and bring them together. That was his language, the language of order. It's no different than when you speak. All you're doing is ordering things. You're putting things into places. It's that grammar of order that's innate. It's innate in philosophy, it's innate in religion, it's innate in language. So what we're doing, or what I'm doing here, when you abstract that, is that you're really stating it the way a person actually thinks. Nobody sits here and thinks from frickin' day one to, on a linear path to the future. Like the past is back here, the future is up here. They don't think that way. Everything's intermixed. The point of the first book was that you could take the hard objects, the absolutes in time, and stack them up and look at them. You could sight over them and get a perspective. The hard objects would be the big things in your life, or the things that you knew to be true in multiple levels. Like, let's just say your dad gets run over by a truck in front of you. That's a hard object. That thing will mean many things over the course of your life, but it's always going to be with you. It's not stuck in the past. That event stays with you. It's there right in front of you constantly. One of the characters in the first book, Eddie, kills a 6-year-old girl. He's in Vietnam. She's wired with explosives. He's on patrol. She's running toward him, and the sergeant says, "Shoot her." And he did, and she blows up. For the rest of his life, every freaking day, multiple times a day, he shot that girl. Again and again, he sighted down that rifle, and again, he shot her. That stayed with him. In that sense, it's easy to understand a disordered concept of time, because it's a typical storytelling pattern that people are familiar with. You know, the soldier with flashbacks, PTSD stuff. But take that down to a choppier, minor level, where you're not dealing with known themes, and you're not dealing with this story that's been told and then reflected upon, but you're dealing with just the points of light breaking through this guy's thinking that are these other perspectives coming in. That's how I wanted to write the first chapter. I went the second chapter, well, maybe up to the fourth or fifth chapter. Then it kind of, I saw the time as spiraling, the events passing by, the past and future events, and then it goes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and as it spirals bigger, it develops what might seem like a more linear time pattern. It's really just another spiral. It's just a spiral, but it's just bigger. It's not ever really a straight line. So that was what I was getting across there. I've been working on that idea for 40 years. It's hard to believe. And actually I state how, through the character, how I came up with that concept. So in any event, it's just been a way to, and it made sense because it allowed me to order things in time, and order things in importance, and order things across time. Because one event just doesn't happen in a second and then it's gone. And even if you don't remember it, an event will stay with you over at least a few days, typically, depending upon the event. That's the point. You constantly, when you're thinking and when you're telling stories in a conversational way, you're going back and forth in time. You're speaking of yourself in the past, you're speaking of yourself in the future, you're speaking of yourself in the present, and the people who are gathered around you, you're moving them through time as well. That's what I wanted to recreate, was that conversational style. When I did that, the way I could do that, what it struck me was by what I said, abstracting it, but not abstracting the imagery, but by abstracting time. And that's your lesson for today. We'll see how long I talked.